Hey everybody, how's it going? September and June is coming in swinging. Oh, let me see. September and June is coming in swinging. All right. Ola to yourself there, September. Hope you're doing well. My computer is doing some changes all by itself. I don't know why. Let's see how we're doing here. September, listen, I know you're not going to tell me the truth, but let me know how the I feel like I'm sounding silky today again. You know what I mean? I think we talked about that. Like a little bit of is it a little bit of I don't know, just woke up next to Adam Mills kind of sound coming out right here. A little husky. I don't know what the deal is. Maybe we've been fighting something, man. I tell you what, it's been going around this house. I don't know how everybody is doing around your way, but we've had it, and we've had it for a while. We've had something going around our house since before Thanksgiving. I'm feeling very sassy, as September pointed out. I'm feeling very sassy. You know, a little husky, a little raspy, a little sassy. Joining September in the chat, we've got Mad Viking. Morning from Australia, mate. Glad I could jump on finally. Good to see you in here too, man. Good to see you in here. Again, that's always a trip to me to have that international feel of the show. I got to tell you, I don't know if this is actually get put in the podcast or not, but I caught a little heat this past month for not doing metric during a video or whatever. And I tried to explain. I couldn't tell like if the guy was actually like, I don't know, like irritated with it. Hold on a second. I couldn't tell where he was really coming from with it. But he was saying, a lot of other creators use, they'll post the metric or they'll do this, that, or the other thing. Listen, this is not like some nationalistic hubris. This is me. So usually what I do is I edit the entire video after I can download it. And so that's the video that goes up for Spotify and Apple Podcast. And then I take kind of that master copy that's been trimmed up a little bit, and then I'm just clipping it quickly and creating thumbnails and uploading them to YouTube. So a lot of time when I'm actually posting videos and putting things up to YouTube or editing and putting things up to YouTube, I'm usually not even watching the entire video. I'm clicking forward until I get to the next one, because I'm just doing a quick chop it up process there. But so a lot of times I'm not even sure, like when I've made measurement references so I can remember to go back, but it's nothing malicious. It is what it is, man. We got Ryan in here. Ryan, new channel member, Ryan. Okay. New channel member, Ryan, in the house. We got OPB. Hey, from Singapore. Man, I tell you what, we're putting it all together. We're putting it all together tonight. Mad Viking. I've had to write a little cheat sheet for myself to understand what you're saying most of the time. Now, pardon me for the coughs this evening, you guys. Like I said, it's been wild. I appreciate you taking it upon yourself. And it's funny because there's just certain things. Like there's certain things about my time at Sonder that are almost only in metric because we only use metric there. But it's just how you did your thing. Yeah, September. Ryan's good people. Ryan's good people. New face, new case. Bruce, what's good, man, from Florida? Welcome. Well, listen, everybody, let's jump into the thing. I'm tweaking things up a little bit at the beginning of the pod. So this is the official beginning. Okay. So if you were to start the podcast, this is when it would start. Welcome to the December 2024 live stream Q&A podcast. My name's Adam Mills, and this is Adam Makes Beer. Check out the YouTube channel, everybody. Tons of good stuff over there. Everything from full brew days, new behind the scenes. I'm getting into different breweries, doing different things. See that stuff. All the Q&As are up there. Technique videos, tutorial videos, all that good hands-on action. Do you want some good hands-on action? Well, then you better check out the playlist, baby, over on Adam Makes Beer. Do with that what you will. As most of you know, maybe you don't know, but content creation consultation is my full-time job now. And if you find that this educational brewing content is bringing you value and you have the means, please consider a channel membership for less than a cup of coffee a month, $2.99 a month right now. And I want to shout out some of the wonderful channel subs that we not just subs, but members, VIP members that we have. We have a lot of the OGs that are in the chat right now, but we have just added a couple more in the past month. So a big shout out to Corey O and Hafta and Brookside Brewing for membershiping, and then also my boy Ryan, who's in the chat right now. Okay. Very much appreciated. I love that support. It does get you, it does get you priority for Q&A questions, and I might further flesh out those tiers. But we'll see how it goes. And again, it's one of those things where if it feels if you're getting value out of the content that and it works for you, that's great. Go over. It might actually be best. I've had some people struggle to sign in on a mobile device, and I've had people had better success going to a desktop version of the webpage and then hitting the join button. So if you have the scratch, that's great. If you like the content, you want to support me like that, I would appreciate it. Free ways of doing it. I know tons of people watch this stuff and are not subbed to the channel. Please sub up to the channel. That's a big help. And like and share these goodies. You know what I mean? You know what I mean? Hey, you know what? Speaking of cash, who feels good about being smart with theirs? Well, I've got the hookup. Brewed Fiscally, live read. That's the title for what I'm supposed to be reading out loud right now. So I wasn't supposed to say that, but you'll stick with me. Check out my boy David Lentz at Brewed Fiscally. This man has what you need on the financial side: bookkeeping, fractional CFO support, financial management system design, business plan review. Hit up your boy. Check him out over at brewedfiscally.com or at David at brewedfiscally.com. He's good people. He can help you with all that stuff, man. More than ever, it's good to make sure you got to have the financial side on point when you're trying to do things in this industry. It's getting lean. It's getting tough out there. Okay. Yours truly is sitting here, with a whole, career focus switch right now because it's tough out there. All right. The financial side of operating your business, it's critical, obviously, but sometimes you can say obviously, but sometimes I feel like it gets overlooked a little bit. You got to dig into that stuff. Even sometimes when it's a little scary, you got to dig in and get in there and make things right. David can help you with that. He's a buddy of mine. I think he's a good dude. Smart guy, good experience. Speaking of good people, starting a brewery is a big step. That's why Blickman Engineering is here to support you along the way. Since 2006, they've helped hundreds of breweries succeed with nano brewery tailored equipment, including the new 3.5 barrel Pro Service electric brewing system. This new innovative brew house reduces maintenance and saves brewers at least 30 minutes every brew day, as the heating elements are mounted under the kettle and host over 20,000 watts of power in both 2-vessel and 3-vessel configurations. Their competitively priced equipment lets you start fresh, offering a full suite of brew houses from 1 to 15 barrels. Matching cellaring equipment, keg washers, grain mills, and accessories specifically for the Nano Brewer. Ready to go pro or just exploring options? Contact Phil or Tom at ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Again, that's ProSeries@BlickmanEngineering.com. Blickman Engineering is proud to sponsor this channel and committed to helping brewers at every stage of their journey. Good people at Blickman. Listen, we've got cool things coming up, baby. Segue. If a little Adam Makes Beer news, a little AMB news. I am gearing up next month. Listen, sometimes Christmas presents come late. Okay. Sometimes the best gifts are saved for last. So if you're going to the Ohio Brewers Conference in Columbus, get ready to see me because I'm going to be up in there. Me and David, we're going to be having a booth in the trade show, baby. You know what I mean? We're going to be in there doing the thing. And I can talk to you about what I'm doing on the video side, the content side, the consultation side. We can just say, what's up? So yeah, look forward to that. I know I am. And maybe there may also be there's some rumblings that I might be making an appearance at CBC as well, which I think is in Indianapolis. Let me try to do this. My cough has been fine all day, and it's just kind of flaring up a little bit right now. What else? Let's see here. Bobby F in here. Jorge Castro Srivas. We got people saying good evening. We got people saying good morning. It's an international affair. Okay. What else is good? Yeah. So you might see me creeping around Indy. Speaking about creeping around Indy, I was just in Indianapolis. Me and my 20-year-old and my 17-year-old, and we went to see Morrissey, which was amazing. It was the best. I didn't grow up in college. I started listening to Morrissey a little bit. Former frontman of the Smiths, if you're an 80s music, especially British music type person. And I don't know. He was one of those bands one of those musicians that I've just always had a place in my heart, know their stuff really well, kind of a really big fan. And I've seen him a few times, but the coolest time was this past time, which was just a few weeks ago in Indianapolis. Like I said, two of my kids, they started listening to the Smiths and Morrissey because they were driving one of our old, 40-year-old cars with 1 million miles on it. And I had some CD cases in there with some of my old CDs, and the radio in that car doesn't work and the CD player does. So they ended up listening to some of my old stuff and enjoying it. I remember my son coming in, he's like, Dad, he goes, he's funny. He writes funny songs. I'm like, yeah, he does write funny songs. So anyways, I went with the two of them. We went out and saw that show, and it was just beautiful, man. It's beautiful. I think that I think there's something to the music, and especially the concert scenario. I really do believe there's something I don't know, there's something spiritual, religious about it. Like, and I'm not trying to make, like, for some people might be uncomfortable with that connection, but it's something that is, it's interesting when there's all these people that gather together and experience something very intense with people that they might not even know, right? And everybody is just tuned in to the performers. It's something very innate in us. And it was a powerful thing. So speaking of Indy, yeah, so I'm gonna be prowling around Indy a little bit. Make sure to get out there and see me as well. If you're doing the CBC thing, make sure you're following me on Instagram so you can see where I'm at, so we can say what's good. What else? Oh, also in Adam Makes Beer news, I started rolling out the recipe writing workshop. That's been going well. So far, I have 2 installments, and there's been a couple of things going on that's kind of have me delayed a little bit on this, but it is going to be starting up again. I've rearranged this room here that I've been recording in for a long time, and I'm finding when I'm recording video, just like in here in this office now, I've been using this GoPro that I bought, which has been great, but I've been struggling dialing in, getting the microphone to work on it correctly. And so sometimes the audio is really echoey, and I know that's not the biggest thing, but there's a couple of things that I want to tweak before I continue to dive into that series, just from a quality standpoint. But also, I've been busy with a couple of other things. As you might have seen, I've been getting some behind the scenes in brewery content back out on the internet. I had a good time with my buddies over at Warped Wing. Went over there for got to shadow part of a brew day and check out their awesome canning line. That was a lot of fun. You should really check that stuff out. They have some really cool things going on. Colton was on the brew deck, showing me through their process a little bit. Really nice guy. It was a great time, and this is my first time. Hey, I'm just rolling in as a content creator, coming in to like do my thing with you in the brewery. And I'm not super tight with those guys or anything like that. I knew John a little bit back from his time in Michigan when he was at New Holland, but yeah, it's some cool stuff. You're definitely gonna wanna check that out. So, I've been diving in on the content creation side. I've been taking meetings on that as well. But I've also been prioritizing some of the consultation work that I'm going to be doing actually coming up very soon. I had my first consultation job actually in some time. I've had other ones before, but kind of launching under Adam Makes Beer. I have my first consultation job coming up under that, which I'm really excited about. I'm going to be heading out to Arlington, Washington State, and doing some consulting out there with my man Ryan from 210 Brewing. You know what I mean? So that'll be a lot of fun. I'm going to get out there. We've chatted a handful of times. It's actually funny. We found out that I live fairly close to where he grew up or where he spent a lot of time. So that was pretty wild. We jumped on a FaceTime call a few weeks ago and did some laughing about that. But going to go out there and do the consult thing. So, a lot of my focus right now is, why more of the recipe writing workshop is not out there right now is because, the majority of my work efforts are going toward things that can bring the largest financial return to me, with my working time. And I am taking about 3 days a week. I'm definitely full-time stay-at-home dad. So, that's actually been going really well because I've just been, especially this past week when it's my time to be at home and be dad, I can just really lean in and do that. And I'm kind of just unplugging from anything else that I can be doing. And that's been very peaceful and very good. So yeah, and then on days like my wife didn't work today, so I was able to get after it a little bit more and jump into prep for this podcast. But yeah, hold on just a second. Courthouse in the house, man. Courthouse in the house, man. There's some folks that I haven't seen in here. My junk account is in here. Morning from Japan. Jorge Castro loves the Smiths. Listen, man. You know what I mean? Listen, I got the Morrissey shirt on right now, baby. Maybe it might not be like an original, like a certified one or whatever, but I got the Morrissey shirt on right now. We got Jorge Castro. We got Mihahio Ampov. Pardon, no, never any disrespect meant when if and when I mispronounce names. I just do the best I can. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take that question here in just a second, Ampov. We got Dancing Squirrel in the house. Dancing Squirrel. Yeah, boy. Well, listen, let's my computer's doing some stuff it hasn't done before when I'm doing these live streams. So I'm navigating this a little bit. But yeah. So but as this in brewery content is coming out, as the recipe writing workshop stuff comes out, please keep up with the great feedback that I've been getting. Not just saying, please compliment me, but let me know what's working, what's not, what you want to see different, and we can kind of take it from there. But let's shift up into the December career corner here before I start knocking out some of these questions for you guys. For some of you ladies and gentlemen, December career corner. I mentioned the recipe writing workshop has been a slow rollout, having multiple irons in the fire right now. I am prioritizing consultation and in-brewery content, as I mentioned before, because that's really going to be the fastest way toward me earning a substantive income on this side. Now that I'm going full time with this, like I just mentioned, I am going to be jumping out to 210 Brewing next week, getting out there and doing some work with Ryan, probably maybe a little bit of video content as well. But keeping in the spirit of the whole Adam Makes Beer career corner thing, this consultation / kind of coaching role that I'm taking on is very exciting for me. First of all, I feel good about the value proposition that I'm offering people. I'm not a guy that you want to say, oh, well, we're going to start a brewery. I need you to help me find a building and talk to the electrician and the general contractor. I'm not the big nuts and bolts consultation guy that I'm talking about, but like the services I'm talking about are hands-on, bread and butter, killer skills for making high quality, shelf stable beer in your brewery, right? And I remember what a benefit it was for me to have my dear friend Bill Gerds come on and work for me when I was at Crankers in Big Rapids. He'd already been in the industry for 7 or 8 years, and I was only 6 months into my time on the pro side. And he had all that experience rolling in, and he always liked to minimize it or whatever, but there's so much value in it, and I think I do think for the right situation, for the right client, there's tremendous value to being able to bring in an experienced professional brewer that has expertise as a teacher and trainer, and with the goal of really helping you to take your brewing operations to the next level, right? So I feel good about the direction that I'm going there, because I'm really passionate about working with people. I'm excited to see new gear, to problem solve new stuff, and I love helping people get better, more efficient, a little bit sharper at what they're doing. So I'm very excited about that, and I've been pleased to see the outreach that I've had from people. So I might have a very cool one coming up a little bit later in February, but we'll see about all that stuff. I don't want to talk about that until everything's locked and loaded. But yeah, I love getting into different breweries, working hands-on with people with their particular equipment to maximize their processes and efficiencies. At the end of the consultation, my idea for you is to walk away with kind of a full SOP, breakdown, full SOP manual built specifically for your system and setup, recommendations for advancing your quality program based on your production goals and stuff like that. So I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. If you're in that planning stage, I talked to some folks to where they have experience on the homebrew side, or they have a pro brewer that has some experience that they want to have taking over. Think about building that into your business plan. And this just isn't me trying to drum up business for myself or somebody else that does something like this. The reality is it's more and more difficult to be doing this in a profitable manner out there. And you've got to be on point. Earlier I mentioned, David and Brewed fiscally. You got to have your finances straight. If you look at a relatively small investment up front to help your brewery get off on the right foot, it might be worth it. Big picture, right? So, yeah, that's what I'm working on. That's kind of career corner, man. I've been working hard on the content creation side. Yeah, I feel good about it. And yeah, your boy's doing well. This is better. I'm doing better than I have been the last couple times that we've had this podcast. Things are, family stuff is taken care of, so I feel good. Pardon me, just real quick. We have Fox Hat in here. We got Fair Drink 'em Brews in here. Man, we got everybody. We got these are some new faces in here. We got Jamie Tripp in here. All right. Fair Drink 'em Brews. I started a series on my channel called Interviews with a Homebrewer. Would you be interested in being a guest on the show in the new year? If so, I will send you through an email. Yeah, man. Fair Drinkum. Are you on Instagram? If you're on Instagram, that might be the cleanest way to hit me up. Adam Makes Beer on Instagram. Just send me a message on there. And yeah, anybody that wants to have me on a podcast or anything like that, just hit me up with a message on Instagram in general. That's pretty much easy. Or you can go DM on Facebook as well. But I'm really bad with checking. I have a lot of stuff coming in, and it's hard for me to keep up on. Good, yeah, man. Hit me up on Instagram. That'd be great. And September insists that every time that I mute rather than coughing, I'm farting. But I'm not farting, September. How dare you? How dare you? I'm wondering, I'm trying to avoid the cough drop. I'm thinking that a cough drop might keep me like a little, but listen, I spit a lot of words, ladies and gents, and my getting over the cold thing is showing a little bit. But listen, if I don't start answering these questions, they ain't never gonna get answered. You know what I mean? So let's roll back here, because I know we had again, welcome to everybody in the chat. So great to see everybody in there. Ampov asks, do commercial breweries at large scale use Whirlfloc tablets, or what is the process? Yeah, I mean, I've used Whirlfloc at almost every brewery I've worked at. Sometimes they have big daddy ones, like big daddy tablets, and then they have smaller ones as well, and you just scale it up. You know what I mean? It'll say on the thing, like, you get a 5-pound bag of the Whirlfloc tabs. Some people do different things, though. There are other kettle hot side clarifying agents that aren't like pre-squeezed into a tablet that you can measure out and dose. I used some different ones when I was at Sonder. But yeah, I've used Whirlfloc at just about all the places that I've worked. And as far as that goes, I believe it'll say to add within the last 10 minutes of the boil to the whirlpool, in that range. So that's what I've done with it. And you know what, you guys, I am gonna grab actually, let me see if I have a cough drop in here. Take a beer break real quick. This is just going to take a second. I'm going to run in the other room and grab a couple of cough drops. I'm going to try to prevent like me making a lot of like mouth cough drop noise when I do this, but I think it's going to help me stop me from being as rough on the microphone. So I'll be right back. Grab a beer, go potty real quick if you need to. All right, everybody. And we're back. Hopefully with the little cough drop action, we'll be in better shape here. Love to see all these new names and these great live streaming eyes in here. Good to see so many people in here. But yeah, Ampoff, I've used Whirlflock a ton, and that's the deal. So yeah, that is not a problem at all. Dancing Squirrel, howdy. How in the hell can I get chocolate flavor to stay in beer? I can get deep chocolate flavor with nibs initially, but it disappears about a week after kegging. Any chocolate secrets? Morrissey rules. Well, I'll tell you what, dude. I do have a couple chocolate secrets, but also he was 65 and he was still killing it. I'll say this right now. Morrissey has never been a great dancer. One of the benefits of being a 65-year-old man still on tour, it has limited some of his range of motion. And he's kind of doing like a little bit more of like a vibing thing with the music, which actually fits a little bit better because I love the man, but his dancing's brutal. But to what you're talking about, chocolate flavor, I think nibs can be great and you can get some underlying stuff. Sometimes people use them on the cold side. I would suggest potentially using some on the hot side, bagged up, to really try to infuse that flavor in there, because it might be easier to do that on the hot side. But then I do think you need to come back on the backside on the cold side with a very high quality chocolate extract, because that's going to lift your nose, your aromatics on it, and your flavor, and it'll hold. Now, I would suggest sometimes people don't like answers like that, but I think it's a reality. You know, you can use nibs, you can use cocoa powder, you know, you can load up on it to jump aromatically. I think that's what you're going to need to do. Yeah, so that's the deal. That's the deal with that. I do think you're going to want to layer those two things up. You're going to want to layer those two things up. What else? Let me make sure I'm just not missing anybody else here from the chat. And I do have some other videos on that. If you pull up my page and then search specifically chocolate, but I mean that's pretty much in a nutshell there. But try out different manufacturers of extracts and see what you can get after. Ken says, I design holiday cards every year. This year, I have been struggling for a topic. You have inspired your this year's theme. How so? How so, Ken? Fair Drinkum. I found your channel the other day. I've been binging it since. Love that. Love that. Appreciate it. Fox Hat, good to see you. What else? What's good? What's good? It's not LaCroix. It's off-brand LaCroix. It's Kroger LaCroix. Yeah, it's cheap LaCroix. Forget the cough drop. Eat a fart drop. Thank you, September. I wish it was Toots, man. I mean, Toots, I feel like I could keep under wraps. Man, you guys are wild. Srivas, mix in 20% husk into your nib mixture. Knocks those aromatics up a massive amount. When you say that, when you say 20% husk, what do you mean by that, Srivas? He says also low roast cacao. Kids provide this amazing nutty flavor aroma if you're looking for that. Yeah, explain to me. Oh, nibs. Yeah. Cool. Cartoon Elves Brewing. That's right, baby. Mixing it up. Get it, Ken. Yeah. Well, listen, let me jump into a couple questions as we go here. The first one that we're going to look at is again, and sometimes I'm not always good at pronouncing, but the first one is from Pal Lore on YouTube. Nice brew day tour. Keep doing more videos like this. Do they use water to sanitize the wort line, or just do they? Let me see. Do they run water through the wort line, or just wort to sanitize the wort line? This is in reference to one of the videos that I did with Warped Wing when we are talking about the brew house, and we are talking about building out that sanitizing loop for the heat exchanger and for the wort line. So when I say wort line, I'm talking about the pathway from the brew house through the heat exchanger, and then all hosing that would be going out to the fermenter to knock out wort to a fermenter. That's what I mean when I say the wort line. So he's asking because I know sometimes I've seen some people in both on the home and pro side that will circulate boiling wort through that in order to do that process. And what they do is they put a solid volume of water into the kettle and then recirculate that water with the steam jackets on to bring it up to 200 degrees. And then they are pushing that water all the way through their wort line. Okay. And they're going to want to get that up above 185 degrees F or 80 degrees. Is it 80 degrees? 85 C and maybe 180 F. I think that's what the combination is. But at a nice sterilization temperature, 20 minutes to a half hour is going to get you there. One of the reasons that I prefer both on the home and pro side, I'm not sure what side you're looking from. I would prefer to be doing that with water because I don't want to be giving a whole bunch of chances for my heat exchanger to be potentially clogging with any grain particulate, true protein break material that would be in the kettle. I'm not saying it's impossible to do or anything like that. But yeah, I would feel better about doing that burnout process, that sterilization temperature, that sterilization process with hot water as opposed to hot wort, even though hot wort can get it done. But I think you're going to end up in a problem spot potentially with getting a junked up heat exchanger. So yeah, that is the deal there, Paolo. I appreciate the question. One of my favorite nicknames, and listen, ladies and gentlemen, I'm not getting political, but I think this is reference to a politician, and I think it's funny. Next question is from Margarine Taylor Grease on YouTube. I just even laughed saying it out loud. Listen, I don't even know. I couldn't pick this person out of a lineup. And again, I'm not talking politics on here. But anyways, I think that's a funny name. It just makes me laugh. Margarine and Grease. I don't know why that makes me laugh. What is your method to calibrate a temperature probe? I used to use boiling water at 100 C to calibrate at 100 C, but now I'm at 200 meters. So I use ice for 0 C. Is there a reliable thermometer for reference? Yeah, man. First of all, this is a great point because I think very often things like calibrating thermometers are not part of kind of a yearly, quarterly, biannual plan that people have for standard maintenance in their brewery. And I do think that it is very important. And as Marjan was mentioning, there are ways to do that. And with a lot of probes, temperature probes that I've used, you have one of two options. You can either stick it in boiling water, and then that would be 100 degrees C, or you can put it in ice water, and that would get you your 0 degrees, and you can calibrate it like that. I do think it's good. And I'm sure you could get a, like a, lab grade thermometer, that you can calibrate and it's super sensitive. I really don't think you need to go that far, but I do think that boiling water test and especially that doing both and maybe leaning on that ice water one as well. But the key is going to be with the ice water one, you want to have a very ice dense mixture. We're not talking about a situation where you have, water up to here and then it's ice up here and it's just water down here. We're talking about packed with ice to the top, and then water just until you hit the top of the ice, and then swirl that and get that very cold. I think it's a great application for sometimes what people call good ice, or the really, really small ice. It almost looks like slush. So where you could make like a really dense, ice water solution, set that in there and calibrate them like that. I think that's the way to go. And one of the reasons that I really want to talk about this is think about the number of places in your brew house where you have temperature probes that have probably not been calibrated in a very long time. You might be surprised. Okay. So anything from that probe that is in the back that is controlling your calling for cooling glycol, that needs to be pulled and calibrated from time to time. It's also another good thing to be using the temperature transfer paste that goes in there. It looks like butt cream. It might be zinc. Something zinc? Maybe not. That could be crazy wrong. But anyways, there's a temperature transfer paste that you can use that can help that probe get a more accurate reading. But I mean, you have probes on the hot side, on the cold side, lots of places. Calibrate those things. You'll find that a lot of them on the back, if they're better ones, they'll have a screw that you can adjust to dial that in once you have everything worked out. But yeah, and it's best to check out the high and low on it, So yeah, Marjan Taylor Grease. I do appreciate that question because it's a good shout out for if it's been a while since you've gone through. We're getting into slower days on the brewery side. Typically, maybe you're busting all the way through the cold winter months as well. But this is a great time of year to be going around and busting things down and making sure everything's calibrated, up to date, greased. Marjan Taylor Greased. But yeah. All right. Appreciate the question, MTG. Next question comes from Riv Rivera on YouTube. Question, Adam. When you make your water adjustments, do you adjust all water being used in the mash and sparge, or just the mash water? I use RO water, and I usually go with 50-50 calcium chloride, 100 parts per million SO4, no sodium, no Epsom salt. Should I adjust all the water I will be using? So a couple of things. First of all, I have never used RO water to make beer before in my life. I know a lot of people do. I think that's great. You can build back up whatever water profile you want. I think that's awesome. I don't have any experience at all working with it, but I can say that when you put your water numbers into a spreadsheet like Brewing Water, it is going to give you both a mash and a sparge portion. So what I would do is I would get the brewing salts for the mash into the mash, and then the portion that says sparge, typically I just added those to the kettle. That's on the salt side, with the exception of the acid that is necessary to bring my sparge water pH down. And listen, some people have good enough water they don't have to do this, but in a lot of places I've worked, I've had to adjust my pH of my sparge water considerably in order to eliminate some harsh grainy flavors, especially in more gently flavored beers. So yeah, I'm a big believer in that. I think you can go ahead and still add that same water profile if you're using Brewing Water. That thing that says sparge, add it in on the kettle side, but do make sure that your pH is still going to be right. And for me, really, just a good rule of thumb, anywhere 5.4 to 5.5 for that sparge water. So you know you're not going to be pulling a bunch of tannins and everything like that out of it. Appreciate the question, Riv. Hey, Ryan, that's a really good question. And we're going to be digging into that. I'm actually going to, I need to dig in on that, because when I looked at your water profile, that was the first thing I noticed was the amount of sodium in there. So what we're going to have to look at is when we punch that into Beersmith, let's see what the finished beer numbers look like, because you're going to be losing some of that depending on the makeup some of the rest of your water. So we'll dive in on that stuff though, man. But that's something that I actually want to sit down with you with and really break that down. Let's see. When did I say 200 Celsius? I meant 100 Celsius when we were talking about boiling. I'm sorry if I wasn't clear on that. One imperfect saint. I like that username. I've not seen you in here before. Novice question. First of all, they're just questions, baby. They're just questions. I'm having efficiency problems, missing 10 to 16 points of gravity per brew, grain percentage versus mash temp time or boil time. I gave a deep dive answer on increasing your brew day efficiency, and I just posted a video of it within the last 2 weeks. And the title of it is everything like that. You're going to want to go back and dive into that, because I actually had like a written out prepared answer for it. And it's really the best answer that I have for this, but there's a lot of things going on here, and it could be anything from equipment based to crush to process to some water chemistry things. So I would jump back to that. And if typically you're saying it's a novice question, so I'm going to assume that you're talking about brewing on the homebrew side. But sometimes you can have, equipment issues, efficiency issues. Sometimes you're using older grain or poorly crushed grain or something that doesn't work well for your system. But dig back, and I'm not just giving you I'm just not blowing you off here. I have a very detailed video about that just very recently. So go ahead and dig back. on the channel. Go to videos and the most recent ones, and you'll see it within the last 2 weeks. And welcome again. One of my favorite usernames. It's currently summer here, so I'm brewing my ass off. Yeah. Yeah, so it's summer. You are brewing your ass off. So wait till it's cool, man. Wait till it's cool. Yeah, Srivas, that is a big issue. I think we're gonna be able to solve it with some of that stuff. Ryan, like I said, yeah, and so one imperfect saint. There's some good advice popping here in the chat as well. There's a lot of savvy brewers in here. Okay, so my junk account in Japan, we can't adjust water or it can't be considered beer. So that's wild. So you're saying that you can't like change the pH of your water, like add acid to it? Only wheat, only beers, only wheat, hop, yeast. Okay. Yeah. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay. That's interesting. I didn't know that, man. I didn't know that. In order to make fake beer, you need a different license. Interesting. Fair drinking brews. I plan to brew my lagers in winter, as it will be a lot easier. Yeah, winter's the time for putting that stuff down. Yeah. I think some guy might be trying to post a link. Maybe. I don't know. We'll see. Man, it's popping in here tonight. It's popping. All right. Next question is from Ryan on Instagram. At 210 Brewing Company, we harvest yeast and repitch several times, but eventually we just buy a new appropriately sized fresh pitch versus propping our own. I have never done this. Is there a quick and easy propping for dummies setup we could utilize to start propping our own yeast so we can buy smaller pitches and save a few bucks? Or is it not worth the hassle or savings for a 10-barrel brew house operation? We do have yeast springs and a microscope for cell counts, but no stir plate or large lab setup. Well, it sounds like you have a lot of the stuff that you're going to need to be doing for stuff like this. You have the capacity to do cell counts, and I'm not going to lie, the wheels were coming off here with the kids, and I have the information that I need and back in this text. So, I would normally have it typed on the screen. So we're going to dive into the prop practice here in just a little bit. But I know what I've done in the past is I have purchased what was seen as a 5-barrel pitch from somebody like Omega. So whether that be like for American ale yeast, this is primarily like on the ale side of things. And let me see this. Oh, I would buy a 5-barrel pitch, and then I would make a 5 hectoliter prop batch, and then that 5-barrel pitch would go into that, and then we would grow that for 1 to 2 days, and then we would push that into essentially what would be a 60-barrel fermenter. Okay, so functionally that's what I've done in the past, but let's dig a little deeper. If you go to the Escarpment Labs page, Yeast Lab in Canada, I do want to interview Richard Price, I believe his name is pronounced, but it looks like Priest. I've been saying I want to interview him for a while. I'm getting my life together, people. Give me some time. But they have great resources on their webpage. Okay. So I'm just gonna dig through a few of these things. If you want to pull up their website and go along with me on this, this is on best practices for yeast propagation under Escarpment Laboratories. And that is, if you can't tell with the way I talk or sound, it is ESCARPMENT Laboratories. I do hope that my screaming child in the background is not messing up my thing too much. So step one, understanding yeast propagation. Brewing yeast requires the right conditions to thrive. Here are some key fundamentals. They need appropriate nutrient. Yeast needs malt sugars, complex nitrogen, and pH buffers. Optimal medium. And so what do we prefer to be using for this? We want to be using a wort that's between 10 and 15 Plato with at least 200 ppm free amino nitrogen or FAN. Okay. If you're using malt extract, supplement with yeast nutrients like their yeast lightning. Okay. So a little plug there. Preparing yeast propagation wort. Follow these steps for creating a suitable wort. Wort gravity, 10 to 15 Plato. Fan level, at least 200 ppm. And also, I know a lot of people will also do, like sometimes they'll do, like 10 to 20 IBU in it. So you can throw a little bit in there. I also know sometimes people will try in some way, shape, or form to maybe mimic some of the bitterness of the beer that they're pitching into. So if you are adding, like 5 hectoliters into, a 60 barrel batch or something like that, you're just pushing the whole thing over. Yeah, some people like to do things like that, which is fine. Obviously, you're going to want everything to be sanitary. It goes on to step 3, aeration during propagation. Recommended method using sterile filtered compressed air for continuous aeration. And he said to avoid waste, pure oxygen is effective, but can be wasteful if used continuously. It's better suited for fermentation rather than propagation. And he says further in step 4 with propagation parameters, cell growth expectations. For wort-based propagation, you can achieve 100 to 2 million cells per milliliter. And he says, for example, to propagate enough yeast for a 20 hectoliter batch, you may need a 5 hectoliter propagator, depending on the yeast strain. And he says with propagation temperature, you can go a little bit on the warmer side. He's going C here. So I know that 20 C is around 68 degrees F, all the way up to 30 C. And reason being is that you can probably get faster growth and faster reactions happening at that warmer temperature. And it should not have significant flavor or aroma impact on the beer that you're pitching into. Lager yeast, he recommends propping closer to 20 degrees C or 68 F. Kvike yeast, you can go on the higher side, 30 C. And then I'm wondering, I'm just going to read this and we'll see what if we want to focus on it. It says, seed your propagator with the correct volume of yeast. Inoculate a 1 to 2 hectoliter pitch of liquid yeast into every 1 hectoliter of propagation wort. Okay, so that's why what we are doing in the past, those two things lined up. For strains like lager or English ale, use a 2 hectoliter pitch per 1 hectoliter of propagation wort for optimal growth. Pro tip, we suggest purchasing fresh direct pitches rather than multiple homebrew packs. That's cool. Risks and precaution, be clean, be pure, and do all the things like that. Yeah, man. I do think that there are some opportunities for that. And in some way, if you schedule out things in a certain way and you wanted to be able to cut, so say, you're on a 15 barrel system or something like that. And I'm just throwing some numbers out there. and you have like your light beer. Okay, so it's a pale beer. It's not super bitter, but it obviously has some bitterness in it. It's basically, it's an austere malt bill. You might look at maybe increasing the volume of what you have in the kettle for it, or sacrificing a little volume on what goes into the fermenter, and look out knocking out some of that cooled wort, maybe 2-3 barrels into a fermenter, and then you can pitch into that, and you can kind of use that as your propagation 1-2 days on the ale side, and then run your next fermentation into that tank. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I would want to look down. I would want to sit down with a calculator and really run some numbers on that to make sure that you're hitting all the things that you're hitting. But I think it's a perfectly acceptable way to go. And I do think that everybody's brew schedule is a little bit different. I understand wanting to respect your employer's pocketbook and everything like that. But yeah, I mean, if there's any way you can save, you can save. You just want to be able to do it, obviously, as cleanly and sustainably as you can. And when I say sustainably, I mean, from a quality standpoint, you're not shooting yourself in the foot from a quality standpoint with a practice, when you could just buy clean yeast another time, something like that. So, but yeah, Ryan, love the question, and appreciate you sending that in. Yeah, Ken Melville, love escarpment. On it, got it. Sweet. Sweet. Sweet, sweet. All right. I'm going to mute here real quick and blow my nose. Hey, and we're back. Yeah, that's that. Next question comes from a podcast I was listening to, and the question is this: do hops change the color of your hazy IPA? I thought this was interesting. I was listening to episode 386 of the Beer and Brewing podcast, where they had a hazy IPA roundtable with Steve Parker from Fiden's, Scott Janish, the great and powerful Scott Janish from Sapwood Cellars, and Kelsey McNair of North Park. We got some Haze Boy royalty in the house here. And Steve was talking about getting a beautiful golden color in his hazy IPAs. And he was saying that Mosaic, Simcoe, and Strata just don't get him the color that he's looking for. And I thought that was interesting. I mean, it definitely piqued my attention when they started talking about it. Because people oftentimes do not link this concept of color and hops in the finished beer, right? And so my wheels started turning on what he could be talking about. And then they started fleshing it out a little bit more. And then Janice jumps in and he brings up that what he's really talking about is the fact that the color of the beer is changed by the level of the haze in the beer. So we're not talking about like the hops imparting a golden color or a green color or anything like that. Different types of hops are imparting different levels of haze. And the more robust you make that haze, it's going to change the impression of the color, right? So I thought that was interesting. And then they went on to talk about, sorry, you guys. They went on to talk about how Galaxy, Nelson, and some of those Southern Hemisphere hops tend to throw a more pronounced haze. And then, because those were the hops that he was referring to, as that you can get some of this kind of nice, really bright golden color out of when he utilizes them in certain beers. So I thought that was cool. So for all of you out there that are making hazies, drinking hazies, and you're thinking about those beers, and you're finding a beer that maybe has a little bit different color, but say it's a brewery that you know it's not oxidation, and it's not, the color's not coming from the grain bill. A lot of times it can be coming from some of those hop strains that can be a little bit more haze positive, right? A little bit more haze robust or dense, right? So I thought that was really cool. It's a great episode. It's worth checking into. And I just wanted to bring up that variable about the intensity of haze contribution from different types of hops, especially it seems to be also linked to location of where they're grown. Cool stuff. So anyways, check that episode out. Next question is from Ulysses Sanchez on YouTube. Would it be possible to make a video where you can talk about calculating original gravity on decocted lagers? I've been brewing decocted lagers, and the software that I use doesn't provide a decoction calculator. I've been overshooting my intended starting gravity by 2.5 Plato. I've reduced the amount of pounds of grain and boil time, but I still haven't been able to be near the style recommended OG. Thanks. Okay, so just kind of a cursory search on some things. From the digging into things I was doing, they were saying that you can expect, in general, a 5% increase in efficiency when you're doing some things like that, when you're doing a decoction. And just to be clear with decoction, what we're talking about is we are talking about mashing in and then pulling, usually sometimes a thicker or thinner portion of the mash, depending on different techniques, moving it over to the boil, boiling that for a period of time in order to generate color, potentially, obviously flavor and aroma, potentially, create, make some more accessible sugars, different things like that, and then transferring or breaking down some barriers within the malt. So when it's transferred back to the main mash and brought up, because it'll heat the mash up then for that next mash rest, it can increase, fermentability, different things like that. That's what we're talking about with decoction, along with flavor and color. Okay. But you're also seeing this increased efficiency. Now, some of that can be from the boil off in different things. But I will say that I think you can plan on that 5%. The bad news might be it might be a trial and error thing for you. I am not a calculator wizard, and sometimes I have calculators that want to agree with me and be super effective, and sometimes I just get wonky measurements out of certain ones. So I mean, I hate to say trial and error to you, but you're probably gonna need to play around with it a little bit like that. Do consider that you could also dilute that kettle a little bit too, to get you back down in your pre-boil stage. That might be an option. Once you're at kettle full, you have a full rolling boil, so there's no stratification of wort density. Measure that, test that, and you can get some water in there right up front, and you could dilute a little bit right there, and then you would be able to you would be able to what? You would be able to change some wort sizes, some wort volumes. So if you need to change some hopping volumes, measurements, things like that, it would be a good way to build that back in. But yeah, that's kind of my my advice with it. And also, I have to be honest, I haven't looked for too much of a decoction calculator before because I haven't done a bunch of decoction before. One of the first times I did that was at Sonder, and we didn't do it very much. So yeah, I hope that helps some. Appreciate the question. Cerveza Misioneros on YouTube. How are you fining without opening the fermenter? So this is in reference to a video that I did before where we were talking about kind of pushing in fining agents or an adjunct or something like that. And so when I was talking about adding a fining agent without opening the tank, what I meant to say by that is that it would have been a closed transfer. Okay, so I have the main tank over here. I have a smaller vessel over here, and I have a line connecting them. And I can make sure everything is clean, sterile, and or sanitized and purged with CO2, so there's no atmosphere being pushed into the finished beer. And I can add a liquid to this container, and I can push it into that container in a closed environment. That's what I meant to be saying. That's what I was referring to when I was talking about that. There are ways that you can do that on the home side, depending on equipment. You can use, smaller corny kegs, anything that is safely pressurizable, pushing. Just always make sure if you're ever putting pressure on a vessel that it's meant to receive pressure, that it can receive pressure safely, everything like that. But yeah, that's the idea is a clean, sanitized secondary vessel, and potentially purged secondary vessel that you can push something in. That's what I meant saying without opening it to the atmosphere, potentially, I should have said. So yeah, appreciate your question, Cerveza. Ryan on ID. All right, next question is from Ryan on Instagram. When it comes to running an acid wash on the brewing equipment, including fermenters, brights, HLT, and even kegs, how often should we be doing this? Monthly, quarterly? What would you suggest in order to keep the inside stainless, glassy, and sassy? Great question. And this one is funny. I must have it over there. I busted out my book, my cleaning and sanitizing book, the CIP book from the Master Brewers Association. I believe it's by a man named Wrench, and super good, great book, great reference. And I was peeling through some of that stuff, and I was also thinking about what some different chemical reps have told me over the years. There's a range of things that you can do. First of all, you always want to be using the appropriate dilution or titration level for the chemical, the appropriate temperature, the appropriate flow rate, and the appropriate time. Rinsing for the appropriate amount of time. So that's just all the legal stuff to cover me, right? Because this is a real legit operation. So all that said, I know places that caustic and acid wash every tank every single time. Okay. I don't think they're wrong. I don't think they're wrong at all. And I've also done that with larger CIP systems. So you're not just dumping chemical down the drain. I have worked places that will that will do caustic always, and then we'll do their peracetic acid as a sanitizer. But then maybe fold in that acid wash every 2 to 4 uses on that fermenter. I know some people that do it every time, that do it once in a while, that do it almost never. I can say this, that you know, at some point, what you're talking about is potentially wasting chemical. Okay, chemical is not the most expensive thing, and you just don't want to be dumping chemical all over the place. But I don't think it has to be every time. I wouldn't argue with it. I wouldn't argue with it if it was. But yeah, I do think I do think you want it to be doing it with some regularity. I think the tank likes it. I think the stainless likes it. You know, if I was running my own shop right now, I'd probably do it every time, maybe every other time. Maybe if I was really in a pinch, you know, really busting things out, I might skip it and just do caustic. But because, you know, it is a different pH range, it affects different solids. You know, the book over there said, I forget what kind of, I don't know if it was an oxalate or something like that, but it can prevent, you know, certain types of buildup that your caustic isn't going to be pulling, right? So yeah, I think the safe answer is every time. Maybe the economical answer, because I literally had one guy say, you know, well, do what's comfortable for you, and he was a chemical rep, right? So, you know, whether that's monthly or what have you. But yeah, that's kind of my thought on there. But you do definitely want to be using that stuff. And yeah, my understanding it's good both from a quality standpoint and that stainless likes it too. So yeah, appreciate the question, Ryan. All right. Next. You know what? I'm gonna think about that. Next one is from Ryan on Instagram. When running our Vorloff in our mash tun, which is a mash / lauter tun, there is an attachment that directs the circulating wort directly to the inside of the mash tun along the side. So the wort is running gently down the sidewall versus over the grain bed. Is there any advantage to doing this, or should I be directing the recirculated wort evenly over the grain bed? I was curious to know why they have included this connection to direct the wort to the wall. Maybe I installed it incorrectly. No, you are brewing on a specific mechanical system. Now, one, I know that because we've talked about this, but two, I have brewed on a specific mechanical system, and they were doing the same thing with the older system that I was running. Theirs is a little different. So if you go back to the OG brewery videos that we were doing at Cartridge, and I'm showing you that they had a 90-degree arm that came in, and then the pipe had like a big tissue box. This is the pipe at a big sharp angle cut into it, and that would squeeze right up against the wall. So you have like this big oval that would go up against the wall, and that would pump the recirculated wort down. And then I always talk about there's like a parabola, right? I think that's the word. That's the shape of wort that runs down over there. Yeah, I mean, it is meant to be like that. It is meant to be like that. And I'm not going to lie, it freaked me out when I first started using it, because every other system that I've worked on has returned the wort on top of the grain, kind of in the center, right? And I'm like, man, this thing is going to channel. This is going to be crazy. It's not going to work out well. It worked out just fine. I never had a problem with it. I am actually quite excited to get out there and brew with you on a newer specific mechanical, because it's a trip to see that stuff. You know what I mean? The little things that they do with their stuff. So it should be cool. But no, man, I've never had an issue because, you know, the idea can be is, well, what if you're not fully, you know, recirculating you're not returning it to the whole thing. But the main point is, as long as you're evenly drawing wort off the bottom, okay, in a uniform manner across the bottom of the mash tun, and recirculating that back up, you're going to be just fine, right? And that's certainly what that system does. I never had problems with it. Now your arm looks a little different than mine, but it's all the same thing. It's all the same thing. So no, don't sweat that. But yeah, usually it's like a little, I always call it like a little dentist mirror, like a little circle that I'll spray back down on and kind of fan out. Or sometimes people have a spray ball actually. Anyways, there's all sorts of ways to do it. So the next one that I wanted to talk about was also from this great podcast. So let's jump into real quick kind of recommendations for lasting haze in your New England style IPA. I know stable haze is something that I have struggled achieving with some of the hazy beers that I have made over time. And there's a gentleman that got up on this podcast. Remember, I need to go back and read this because I do want you to be able to see what podcast this was. I was listening to episode 386 of the Beer and Brewing podcast, where they had a hazy IPA roundtable with Steve Parker from Fidens, Scott Janish of Sapwood, and Kelsey McNair of North Park. And they were dropping some gems. And a guy asked them about, stable haze in hazy IPA. And they said a few things. And of course, there's tons of things. The first thing they asked was about dry hopping rate. Okay. Making sure that your dry hop rate is big enough. Now, you're going to have to dig back on this because I'm going to be talking pounds per barrel. If you don't like the pounds per barrel measurement, you have to dig back a little bit. I did another video on what that all means or run some math. But there's multiple things that can impact this. So dry hopping rates, your water profile, your yeast strain. And, people were also saying that they tend to get better haze out of T90 pellets. And that's going to be linked to the increased green matter, higher polyphenol level. Potentially that can be adding to your haze contribution. But as far as yeast stuff goes, Omega has done a ton of research into how haze positive a strain is. So I would jump on to their website and start digging in and seeing what you can, if you're struggling with that, and make sure that you're choosing, a haze positive strain. I would make sure that you're getting your dry hopping rates up north to probably 4 pounds per barrel or north of 4 pounds per barrel. If you're having an issue with that, I would focus on Southern Hemisphere hops, folding some of them in. But dry hop timing, I think, can be something that really can undo your progress or work against you when it comes to trying to create stable haze in a beer. Omega, as I mentioned before, has been doing a bunch of research. And one of the things that they've been researching is haze stability. And for a long time, a lot of people were doing kind of these biotransformation hops, these biotransformation dry hops, where you're dry hopping during active fermentation. And the trials that Omega was running was saying that, the earlier in fermentation that you're introducing that dry hop, the more clear you're more than likely going to make that beer. Okay. So the later into that process, so closer to day 7, or even, post, post fermentation dry hop is probably the best way to be keeping a stable haze in your beer. So that dry hop timing is a really big deal. And sometimes people will say, well, Adam, I really want to be driving biotransformation or this capacity of creating different or more complex or fruity hop flavors due to the interaction of fermenting yeast and the hop compounds in the beer. And I say, that's great, but get it in the whirlpool, baby. Okay. Focus on packing those precursors and everything that those hop oils, everything like that, packing all of that in to your whirlpool. And so that can come with a flowable product, with cryo, with T90, different things like that. So if you're looking for that biotransformation type thing, rather than doing that in your early fermentation dry hop, try to get that into your whirlpool. Okay. And there's a lot of different ways to do that. And that's probably some of the best ways to create stable haze. People are talking about grain bill, and one of the guys up there was like, listen, we've done a beer that, should have been, it was 100% 2-row. So there is no wheat, there is no oats or all the other things that people do with hazies. And he said the beer is hazy as can be. You know what I mean? So it really can come down to some of those other factors. Not that grain bill can't play a role. Okay. But anyways, I thought that was really interesting. I think it's a podcast you should check out. So dip back in there and check that one out and see what's good, because I got a lot out of that one. All right. Next question is from Bondi Beach Beer on Instagram. Adzi, you sexy scoundrel. When building tanks, do you place the butterfly valves on ports in a way that the handle opens up or down, or side to side? For example, the valve axis would turn vertically, or would you have it turn horizontally? Would one way be better over the other for reducing trap bubbles or oxygen ingress? So I think I see what you're saying here. And, so he's talking about if you have, with a butterfly valve, I'll actually use a clamp to show it. I have a clamp back here. With a butterfly valve, let me see, here's the light where you can kind of see it. You can turn it like this. Would it be better to have it to where it's opening like this? Or would it be better to have it where it's opening like this, from side to side, on the north and south axis or on the east and west axis? In my mind, it doesn't matter as long as your tank is level. You know what I mean? So if you have that channel, that is, I'm using props today, ladies and gentlemen. So this is the inside of your tank, and this is going through to your port on the outside of the tank. Okay. And where you have your valve or whatever. As long as this is level, you're not going to be trapping anything. And I also feel as if you're going to get liquid all the way in there. I also feel like the vigor of fermentation, and even if there was like an air bubble that trapped like atmosphere in it, it's probably going to be scavenged up during active fermentation. You know what I mean? I probably wouldn't sweat it too much. I like where your mind is at, like kind of thinking about the small bits and pieces of, how we can do things better, different things like that, having that quality in mind at outset, because that's something that we talk a lot about here on the channel. Because I think it's one of the best native skills for a brewer to develop, right? But I would say that I don't think it's a huge concern, but if this is one of those things that makes you feel comfortable, do your thing. Make a process for your place. You know what I mean? I don't know. You want valves put on like that. If it makes you feel better, if you sleep better at night with it, and that's not what I'm saying you're saying with this, but I think we all probably have some things that we do that are not maybe the most rooted in reality or science, but maybe they just make us feel good. This might be one of those things. So yeah, if this is one of those things for you, I wouldn't sweat it. Keep rolling with it. But yeah, that's my 2 cents on it, Bondi. And once again, you have one of the best. I mean, it's not been often. I think I may have been referred to as sexy at some point in my life. I mean, decades ago. Okay. But I can always count on you to find one more way to say hi to me in a way that I never thought that I would hear again. But sexy scoundrel, I like it. Listen, at my age, you take it where you can get it. You take the compliments wherever they come from. Beggars can't be choosers, baby. I'm running up fast on 50, baby. Okay? Beggars can't be choosers. Next question is from Ryan V on Instagram. Hey, Adam. I highly enjoy your content and I've gotten a lot of tips that have helped me in the brewery, so keep it up. I wanted to reach out to you to ask a question about your water backing video on YouTube. You recommended doing it post fermentation in another vessel. However, I only have unitanks and I can't keep a fermenter open just to wait to use it as a bright tank. Do you see anything wrong with adding boiled water run through the plate chiller to the fermenter before pitching the yeast? Hope you are able to get back to me with any possible tips for this. Ryan, this is also a question that I was supposed to answer last month. So I hope, because I didn't answer this question, you unsubbed everything and you hate me forever. But you're getting the answer this month, homie. Here's the deal, man. I do think that's a fine option. You do mention that it's is there anything wrong with adding boiled water? So yeah, I do think you want to be boiled, and especially since it's going in on the side where fermentation is still going to happen. Because I will say this, I've pre-boiled water before for seltzer or for waterback on the bright side, and I've boiled it and then went running off to the fermenter with it. When we were knocking out, we took the oxygen off the oxygen stone, hooked it up with CO2, and we were blowing CO2 through it on the way to the tank, and it was cold, really cold on the way to the tank. And we still had some DO in that when we measured it at the end. So we would have to continue to strip that a little bit. So I would say if you're mixing on the cold side, you will want to look out for oxygen pickup. But anyways, we're talking about doing it on the hot side. So I think that's perfectly reasonable. So what we would be talking about is we would be talking about knocking into a 20-barrel fermenter, for argument's sake. We're going to put 15 barrels into it, 15 barrels of wort, rinse out the kettle, fill it up with 5 more barrels of hot water from the HLT, boil that, and then knocking that out through the heat exchanger into that fermenter to fill it up to 20. Okay. I will say this, I would make sure that I was adjusting the pH of that water down to the pH of the rest of the beer. Okay. Because you wouldn't want to be doing anything different there. And you may look at wanting to kind of mimic the same water that you built in the earlier beer. So yeah, you might want to be playing around with that a little bit, but just big picture. Yeah. I think you'd be absolutely fine boiling some water afterwards. I would like to pull it off the HLT if you can at that point, because it'll shorten that period. It'll shorten your day a little bit, to get that thing up to a boil it for a while, and then knock it back out through the heat exchanger, filling up your fermenter. I think that's a great way to water back. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. So yeah, I like that. But I would be cognizant of the water chemistry side as well. Okay. Appreciate it, man. Let me see here. Let me see. Let me jump back into the chat here, everybody. Brian Chow. Hey, Adam, is Milano malt a good choice for a big stout? I don't know what Milano malt is. I would have to dig into that, man. Drop me this might sound like a pain, but if you can drop me a question in another video, that's how I keep record of questions that I have coming up. So yeah. My junk account, you're asking about different beverages. and looking into wild yeast, but also killer yeast. I don't have tons of information about that. I know certain like wine strains are killer wine strains. Like you can inoculate an active fermentation, and that yeast strain will kill that yeast strain and take over. Obviously, an evolutionary thing that's built into their DNA, but yeah, I'm not certain. I don't know a bunch about that. I apologize. I would have to kind of do a deep dive on it to be able to give you a good answer. Bruce Cataldo is asking, I was planning an amber ale and wanted to use Red X. Is there a percentage to get that amber color? You know, I've done that, and pull up the spec sheet. I've used a fair amount of Red X, and I think it's a great little malt. But they actually have a recommended usage rate and volume, or in percentage, to use to get that really red color that they advertise being able to get at that. So I would pull up the spec sheet and the user recommendations for it. So I would go, I believe that's the best product. I would pull up the best website and start digging into the data analytics that they make available to you. And I'm positive they will have a recommended range based on density and everything like that. So I would check that out there. I could speculate, but just jump back and check that out there. Ken, what is my favorite kind of beer this time of year? I'm not gonna lie. What I would really say is, at this stage, any kind. And the reason is this past month, I've had some issues dietarily, and I've shared that I do have some food sensitivities and stuff like that. I've been cracking back down and feeling very good. But when we were traveling to see my son, I ran into some problems. It's but anyways, you know, you try to eat what you're supposed to be eating, but you know, preservatives and certain things that I'm sensitive to are they're everywhere. And but I have to tell you, I'm not gonna lie, you know, it's been a while since I sat down and like drank beer. And I miss the social aspect of it. You know what I mean? And like I enjoy beer. And you know, probably, you know, if I got into a place where I knew they were using, you know, the gluten reducer stuff, Brewers Clarex, I might enjoy a pint or two. But my dietary stuff is such a pain in the butt. Like it motivates me to not. I don't know. So I feel like I'm losing an experience. You know what I mean? And again, I'm not trying to like blow it out of proportion or anything, but like there is something to it's hot as hell and you have a cold, crisp lager, man. You know what I mean? There's something to it. There's something to, you know, well, you can say breaking bread, you know, like on the food side, but on the drink side, you know, sharing with somebody like that, it's enjoyable. And, you know, I can have a cocktail, I can have a seltzer or whatever. But I mean, like, to be honest, the alcohol thing for me isn't that much of a draw. You know what I mean? That's just where I'm at. It's not that much of a draw. It's I don't know. I just yeah, man. So I'd take any beer, just as long as it wouldn't make me feel like hell. Ken, I think this is a really good question, and we can probably dig up some hard numbers on it. I don't have anything right here. So Ken asks, I have a 3-barrel brew kettle. Should I run the pump at a slow rate or fast rate, getting the whirlpool? There is a range where if you're ripping that pump, and I don't know your pump size, everything like that. Sometimes people think you need to be getting this massive vortex or whatever in there. You don't need that. You need to be getting your liquid spinning enough to where when you stop it and it rests, it'll cone up enough for you to draw clear wort off the side. That's it. Okay. You can be shearing proteins and creating haze for downstream, which can potentially lead to shorter shelf life, different things, process issues downstream. So yeah, you want to whirlpool as much as you need to in order to get that to settle out in enough of a cone in a reasonable enough time. You know what I mean? Like, hopefully you want to be transferring that beer once you're done with whirlpool within, especially maybe in that 3-barrel system, in like 15, 20 minutes, and then just knocking it out, thumping it out. So I started this practice of kind of just tapering it down and seeing the difference in that true pile at the end, and play a little game of chicken with that. Slow it down, slow it down, slow it down, just slowly. Take a little bit off every time and see if you're still getting the necessary cone that you need at the bottom, and then go from there, man. I'm sure there's a term. I'm sure there's something, there's, a recommended number. I just don't know it off the top of my head. Beer Lee, thank you. Good seeing here. Living in Frederick, Maryland. Boricua? I don't know. Living in Frederick, Maryland. Maybe that was a response to somebody else in the chat. Maybe that was a response to somebody else in the chat. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I'm going to tell you what. Very much appreciate you tuning in. As always, please leave comments, share this stuff. If you know somebody that you would like to see me pair up with on the content side, if you know somebody on the pro side that's planning a brewery and maybe could use some guidance on the consultation side, somebody that's looking to brush up their game a little bit on the SOP side, different things like that, I can help on recipe side, all that stuff. So hit me up, send me messages on Instagram, Facebook. Instagram is best. But once again, just let me know how the content's hitting, what I can be doing better for all of you. I'm going to keep honing this thing as we go. For so many people ask personal things. I just want you to know things are going really great, man. I'm spending time with my 3-year-old that I never would have had, and he's a hilarious little person. So life is very good on my side, and I'm looking forward to growing things in the Adam Makes Beer universe. Be good to your people. I appreciate all your support, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.